Back now.
Welcome to UTR Season 3 Rulebook read out for you. Number 1. General. All rules are subject to change. It is your responsibility to update yourself on the changes. All rule updates will be announced on the website. All drivers must make themselves familiar with the rules before entering any race or competition. If you don't understand a rule, ask a member of site staff for clarity. You must compete in a fair and honest manner at all times. You must drive responsibly and not ruin the racing enjoyment for your fellow drivers. You must conduct yourself well at all times. You must not insult or abuse your fellow drivers in any of the communications facilities. Joke-based banter is allowed in moderate amounts, but any request for banter to cease must be respected and will be classified as abuse if continued after such a request. You must race sportingly at all times, and the position of other drivers must always be respected. If a rule is not specified here, the real-life rules of the discipline in question apply. Always show respect for your fellow racers, understand the limitations of your car and yourself, and drive accordingly. Driving online is not the same as real-life racing in every aspect. Neither is it the same as racing against computer AI drivers. If you are found guilty of breaking any of these rules, your behaviour will be evaluated and penalty assessed by the UTR stewards. Drivers who are using handheld controllers must make additional effort in driving due to the fact that their movements may be jerkier and they may move more suddenly.
Okay, number 2, connection. If a driver disconnects during the qualifying phase, you may reconnect to the session where possible. In F4 games, you may rejoin a restarter session, in which case the race will be started as a rolling start with a warm-up led to collate everybody in a correct order, according to the qualification results, of course. If this type of start is required, if a driver disconnects at the race phase or after the point which you cannot rejoin the session, the event will not be restarted for them under any circumstances. If your car is lagging badly, you may be asked by the event organizer to leave the event and must do so accordingly. Lag is not an excuse for an incident. If your lag caused an accident, you are responsible for it. Although we sympathise with your lag, you must make sure your connection is stable for the championship events.
Okay, right. 3. Event participation. It is your responsibility to turn up to the races and not the event organisers. If for any reason you know prior to a race you'll be unable to attend, you must inform your event organiser as soon as possible. If you fail to advise of your intention to absent in sufficient time before the start of any 3 consecutive events, you run the risk of being excluded from the championship. If you need to retire during the race for any reason, you must inform the event organiser of the reason. Retiring from a race without a legitimate reason will be recorded as a rage quit otherwise. A rage quit carries the same penalties as non-attendance. If you rage quit from 3 consecutive events or a total of 5 times in a season, you will be excluded from the championship. Recording your races through whatever means is recommended in order to back up complaints to the stewards.
Number 4, pitting query. When you enter or exit the pit lane, you are not permitted to cross the white line. Cars on the racetrack have right of way over cars entering racetrack from the pit. You have to take care not to interfere with any other drivers on the track. Swerving in front of upcoming cars to defend your position is not allowed. If you are along another driver at the pit entrance, you attempt to pit and they are blocking your entrance to the pits. It is your responsibility to deal by slowing down. Do not swerve past drivers to enter the pits. 5. Car contact. Contacts and collisions must be avoided at all costs. Pushing other cars in turns or pushing them off the track is strictly prohibited. Leaning on other cars is strictly prohibited in any situation. Leaning is when you use another car to help you drive around a corner. The behind driver must take all necessary care and responsibility not to run into an ahead driver. If you brake too late for a corner or partially lose control of your car and can prevent an accident by steering into the dirt grass or a wall, you are expected to do so. The ahead driver must
must not make any malicious or inappropriate braking or slow manoeuvres. Leading cars must never brake test their cars behind them or swerve in a braking zone or to try and break a toe. The head driver is initialed to be slower or use longer and earlier braking zones than others. They are also initialed to use whichever racing line they choose, making it difficult for a following car to pass. It's perfectly legal if done in a fair manner. If a contact between drivers occurs that results in the guilty driver making up places on the innocent driver, the guilty driver should immediately allow the innocent driver to pass freely to re-establish their position, even if it means the guilty driver has to allow drivers not involved in the incident to pass while waiting for the driver they contacted. If the appropriate contact concession is carried out by the guilty driver, then they may avoid or reduce the severity of any penalties that may otherwise apply. If the appropriate contact concession is not carried out by the guilty party, the usual penalties would apply. If you have to slow down to let another player through, move off the racing line first before you slow down. Come to a full stop is not allowed. Just continue at the slower pace until the other driver passes you. If you make a significant driving area and another driver or driver attempts to capitalise on it, they have the right to do so. Do not try to collide or retaliate because of your error. You can always protest after the race if you think you've been wronged by notifying the race stewards by the stewards procedure only.
Number 6. Corner right. Significant overlap or overlap is defined as having your front wheels along the monocoque or driver positions of the car ahead. A following car has right to road at any time that has overlapped. Leading or defending cars must yield to this right to road. If a car has significant overlap at a turning point of a corner, then cornering room must be given by both cars for each other to allow the cars to take the corner together. In order to deem rights to road at corner exit, the following car must maintain overlap throughout the corner. Having overlap at turn-in does not grant you right to road at corner exit by default. If significant overlap is not keen throughout the corner, then the leading car has the right to choose any wishes at the corner exit, and the trailing car must yield the track space. If two cars enter a corner with overlap and that overlap is maintained throughout the entire corner, the car on the inside must maintain an inside line throughout the entire corner, and the car on the outside must retain on the outside line throughout the entire corner. If any car narrows or tightens his radius, which results in him in crossing lines or from outside to inside or vice versa, that driver will be at fault for any contact with the tires. Please note that minor side-to-side contact is expected while racing closely. Door to door or side pod to side pod. Bumps mid-corners that do not allow offset either car or deemed racing incidents. Before the turning point or after the exit point of a corner, a leading car cannot impede a following car's straightaway line. If a following car has established a line held for more than a second on a straight line, for the leading car must be yielded to his line choice. Even though the following car may not necessarily have overlap, you may not cut across the front of his nose. If a following car has established a straightaway line and a leading car cuts across from him and makes contact, it will deem the leading car's fault. Bump passes are not allowed. Bump passes are defined as soft punching. A leading car nose to tail to bump him wide off the inside or racing line or onto the outside line, and then taking the inside line yourself, or diving to the inside of a leading car without overlap after he has turned in from the corner and bumping him side to side to push him off of the inside or racing line and onto the outside line. All rules in this section regarding other cars must apply to cars all racing speed. When approaching the turn apex of turn, the car which holds the inside turn has its entrance advantage, and other cars must refrain from endangering them from their actions.
Hold on, that's a mouthful. Number 7, which is standing start guidelines. Additional caution and care must be taken when beginning a race with a standing start. All of the above rules in regard to contact applied in the start and first corner of the race. Be patient. Begin the race at a normal pace that will not cause you to run into the cars in front of you. Don't begin by steering to one side and attempting to barge through the pack. Conversely, don't begin at a slow pace that will make you an obstruction or barriers to cars behind you. Due to field compression, a compact field will run slower through the first few turns than a spread out one. Leave some extra space, but not too much. Drivers behind you won't be expecting sudden braking. All of the rules in regard to contact concession apply if you knock a racer off track during the start of the race. If you cause a wreck, you are required to wait for all players who go off track as a result, regardless of whether you contact them directly or not. If you are involved in a wreck which you did not cause, you are not required to wait. You must be aware that your car and the cars of those around you will act differently on heavy fuel. This must be taken into account in the early stages, as anticipating another driver's movements can avoid a collision.
Number 8. Rolling start guidelines. At a rolling start, you must proceed with care from the starting point in order to self into your qualifying position and join the queue behind the lead driver. Once in position, every driver must maintain the speeds outlined below, unless required to slow down for a tight corner, in which case the drivers should resume the formation lap pace as soon as possible. Whilst drivers are finding their positions, no weaving is permitted, and you must allow other drivers in their position as quickly as possible. The permitted speeds are as follow: 150 kph, which is 93 miles per hour. Any other discipline to be confirmed by the event organizer. Tyre warming is permitted. You must weave across the crowd to warm your tyres. However, brake warnings through acceleration and sudden braking is not permitted. Under no circumstances may drivers accelerate and brake hard while in formation lap to warm the brakes up. You can, however, warm your brakes by riding the brake pedal and accelerate at the same time. This will warm your brake up without need to vary its speed massively. At pace laps, you will be done in a single file formation. Drivers must maintain a gap of 3 to 5 car lengths to the car ahead during the pace lap, no more or no less. At all times, you are responsible for two things: keeping your formation lap pace and taking care not to hit the cars in front of you. Any collision between cars in the formation lap will be trailing cars full unless the leading car broke 8.20. If a pile up is caused more than two cars colliding, the car where the back will be responsible. The formation lap will officially end at the apex of the final corner, and you may accelerate to the race pace. You may not overtake any other car until you cross the start-finishing line. Before the apex of the first final corner, the pole sitter may slow down to a pace around 50 km per hour or 31 miles per hour to bunch up the field if he or she wishes, but it is not required to do so. He or she may not brake check or reduce speed below 50 km per hour or 30 miles per hour. During a bunch up below the final apex, all drivers are still responsible for contact with the car immediately in front of them. If at any point of the formation lap you have a spin, crash, or leave the track when you must rejoin at the back of the field, do not accelerate and try and rejoin in your original position. If you receive damage during the formation lap at any reason, do not accelerate past the field and never get to the pit lane. You must wait until the formation lap gets to the pit entrance to leave the line. At any time during the formation lap, the event organizer has to recall off the race at the start if he feels that the rules are not correctly followed. The race will postpone 5 minutes.
Well done. Right, defensive driving. Leading cars have the right to choose their own line when being pursued. They can change their racing line once while they're driving down straight, move from the outside line to the inside, or vice versa. As they approach the next corner, they can return to the racing line of their choice. However, they are not allowed to change their line when their behind driver is directly behind and changes his line to try and make a pass. If your movement causes an accident, you are responsible. Leading cars have the right to take their line of choice through corners. They may drive a defensive line around the inside of a corner to protect their position, thereby forcing an attacking driver to try to pass around the outside. This is not blocking and is part of a normal racing etiquette. In fact, apart from the restrictions of Rule 1 above, a leading driver can drive any line which they feel is the most inconvenient for any following car to try and pass them. Drivers that are about to get lapped have to make sure not to interfere with the lapping cars. Slow down straight on either side of the track or maintain the outside line during cornering. If for whatever reason you happen to be on the inside line when being overtaken, stay on the inside line until all drivers that were about to lap you have passed. You are not allowed to deliberately block the lapping cars. You must move away from the racing line as soon as possible when possible. When approaching a battle with 2 or more cars, be extra since those cars can change driving lines quickly when trying to defend or overtake. The cars in front will already be driving close, so finding a good overtaking spot is much harder. The same rules apply as when overtaking a single car. When you get locked up in a group battle on the straight, you are not allowed to bump the driver in front of you in order to free yourself out of that situation. Stay behind that driver or move sideways as soon as there's sufficient room to do so.
Number 10. Recovering from an incident. It is the responsibility of the driver recovering from any incident to take all necessary care to not interfere with any other cars still on the track or not part of the incident. A relevant incident may include, but not limited to, being spun out, facing the wrong way, perpendicular to the track, going abnormally slow for where you're on the track, getting penalised for any amount of time by the penalty system. If you are off the track, and then the rules on re-entering the track are running off apply. If 2 or more cars involved in a position battle together leave from the track for any reason, they must rejoin it in order they left the track and without gaining advantage.
And finally, number 11, versions. Either gaining a position or gaining a measurable lap time improvement. The track boundaries are defined by the yellow lines around the track, different on certain tracks. If a course line is not present, a curb or wall may be used to define the track boundary. If there is no obvious boundary, this must be confirmed with the event organizer prior to the event. If any part of any tyre is contact with the marked course, then you are deemed to be on the course and legal in every instance. All 4 wheels must completely leave the marked course for the car to be deemed off the track, i.e. if 3 tyres are over white line and your 4th tyre is only in contact with a fraction of the white line, you are still deemed to be on the course. If you run wide on an exit corner, leave the track and do not gain any advantage, you will not be penalised. A measurable lap time advantage in this case is defined as running wide by more than a single car width. If you run wide on a corner exit, stay within a car's width of the track and do not gain a position wide off the track, you are legal within the rules. If a car runs well wide off the track, more than a car's width for a corner exit, it must rejoin the track in the same position or lower and not gain a sufficient speed advantage to cars around it. If 2 or more cars run well wide off the track together, they must all rejoin the track in the same positions or lower and not again a sufficient speed advantage to cars around them or against each other. All rules in this section regarding other cars apply to cars at full racing speed. Thank you for listening. That's the rule book for UTR Season 3.